Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Development Control and Regulatory Board. This is a public meeting and is being broadcast via YouTube. Could I remind members to turn their microphones on when speaking and turn them off when they have finished speaking. This afternoon we have apologies from Mr. Bannister and Mrs. Rosita Page is substituting for Mr. Bannister, so welcome. Thank you, Rosita. First of all, may I thank members for this additional meeting. Clearly I was absent from the last one, so I thank Mr. Lovegrove for chairing that last meeting. It is a matter of principle for me. This is a county council application ultimately, and for transparency and good scrutiny, I feel it right that this application should come before the Development Control Committee, even though the officers do have delegated authority to deal with this matter. I would prefer to see it in front of the DCRB, which I think is the right thing to do. I do note Mr. Charlesworth isn't here at the moment, but as far as I'm aware, Mr. Charlesworth will be joining us. I'm not quite sure where he is, but do expect him to arrive. So, agenda item 1, minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of August 2023. Mr. Lovegrove was in the chair. I was not present. Everybody happy? Thank you. Agenda item 2 is question time. I have not received any questions from the public. Agenda item 3, questions asked by members, understanding order 7.3 and 7.5. I have not received any questions from members. Agenda item 4, to advise of any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda. There are no urgent items today. Agenda item 5 is declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda. It is noted that all members who are also members of a parish, town or district council or liaison committee will have personal interest in those applications which relate to areas covered by those authorities. Are there any other interests to declare? Mr. King.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to declare, is it in the report that this is actually, I'm the division member for where this school is cited. Thank you.
Non-registrable?
It's non-registrable as far as I'm aware, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. King. Agenda item 6, presentations of petitions under Standing Order 35, reports to the Chief Executive on planning applications, county council applications. Agenda item 7 is 2023 065103. Loads more letters and numbers after that. Leicestershire County Council, and it is the construction of a 210 place primary school with associated access, drainage, infrastructure, play areas, parking, ancillary facilities and landscaping. And this is on land between Airfield Road and Owen Way, Market Harborough. Members should have received the addendum report, which has been circulated regarding amendments to the proposed conditions. Mr. Meek, would you just like to highlight any specific points of interest on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the addendum report covers relatively minor amendments to conditions. With respect to condition 18, there is an additional reference to a flood risk document, and then there is a couple of other conditions that have also been attached to the suite of conditions in Appendix A, one in relation to a surface water management plan and one in relation to a noise from any plant on site operating in accordance with the modelling that was reported in the noise assessment. They're relatively minor matters, and it doesn't change the substance of the report in any way.
Thank you, Mr. Meek. And therefore, to present this report is Emily Pugh. Welcome. Good afternoon, Emily, if you would like to present.
Thank you, Chair.
Perfect timing. Back to you, Emily.
Thank you, Chair. So full planning permission is sought for the construction of a 210 place primary school with associated access, drainage, infrastructure, play areas, parking, ancillary facilities and landscaping. The application site is located south of Airfield Way and northwest of Owen Way within the Northwest Market Harborough Strategic Development Area, which is known as Wellington Place. The proposed school would be located in a predominantly residential setting, although the master plan for the strategic development area indicates that a local centre will be located on the northeastern side of Airfield Road. The site is currently undeveloped and covered by scrubby grass. The proposed school building is located in the north of the site and will front Airfield Road. Vehicle access to the site will be from Airfield Road and egress onto Owen Way. A car park with 31 spaces, including 2 disabled spaces and 4 electric vehicle charging points, is located at the eastern end of the site. There is also space for motorcycles to park. The playground is located to the south of the school building. A multi-use games area is proposed further south and close to the southeastern boundary of the site, parallel to Owen Way. The school playing field is located at the western end of the site. Beyond the playing field is a rounders pitch and football pitch, and to the south of the football pitch is a shallow pond. The shallow pond is part of the SUD scheme, as well as a biodiversity feature and an outdoor learning space to be secured by a tall fence. Here are the proposed front, which is north, and back, which is south elevations. The building would be single-storey with a ridge height of 6 metres tall, with a dual-pitched roof and a double-height element accommodating the school hall with an overall height of 7.7 metres tall. This is the proposed west elevation. This is the proposed east elevation. And this is the palette of proposed finished materials, which include brick and cladding to the elevations, a grey standing seam roof and powder-coated aluminium triple glazed windows and doors. It's a simple yet distinctive combination. This is the proposed floor plan. The classrooms are proposed to open onto the playground, which is at the south. This plan shows the landscape areas proposed within the site, including hard and soft landscape areas and a combination of formal and informal spaces. The submitted information states that based on the landscaping strategy proposed, 10% biodiversity net gain can be achieved, and planning conditions are suggested that ensure this commitment is achieved. It's not very easy to see, but this is a plan that shows the alterations to the highway that are to be secured. The alterations include the provision of a zebra crossing on Airfield Road, pedestrian guardrails, painted road markings and pedestrian connections. This scheme of alterations has been subject to a road safety audit. Only one issue has not been addressed because it relates to an issue beyond the scope of the proposed development. Please see paragraph 98 of your report for further information. Leicestershire Highways have been consulted on this scheme and have accepted it. A planning condition is recommended requiring the implementation of the scheme prior to the primary school coming into use, which is condition 12. This is a view looking towards the site from the junction of Airfield Road and Owen Way. You can see the low fence currently showing the northern side of the site and the tall fence showing the southern side of the site. This is a view into the site, looking west. The tall southern boundary in the background, on the left-hand side, is the southern boundary, and there are houses under construction beyond the western boundary of the application site, and that's in the kind of distance of the photo. This is a view looking into the site from Airfield Road. You can see the low fence currently showing the northern side of the site in that kind of left corner of the photo, and the tall fence showing the southern side of the site, which is at the background. The houses in the background front onto Owen Way. This is a view along Airfield Road. The application site is beyond the low fence. You can see the existing houses fronting Airfield Road. The vehicle access to the site would be from Airfield Road in the approximate location opposite the parked car that you can just about see, the black car. The zebra crossing would be located between the first house on the right and where the photo is taken. This is a view into the site from Owen Way. The application site is located beyond the fence. You can see the existing houses fronting Airfield Road in the background. This is a view looking east along Owen Way. The application site is to the left of the tall fence. You can see the entrance to Raby Drive on the right. The vehicle exit from the site would be located beyond Raby Drive, but before the traffic calming measures on Owen Way, which you can just about see in the photo. There, it's closer to where the photo is taken than the white car. The yellow lines controlling the parking on Owen Way would extend further along Owen Way beyond the edge of the photo and into Raby Drive. No consultees have objected to the planning application. Some have recommended planning conditions, and these have been included as appropriate. One letter of support has been received. One letter providing comments has been received. 2 letters of objection have been received. The objections relate to concern about the highway's impact of the scheme, including parking provision within the site, parking impacts outside of the site, and traffic. Parking has been provided in excess of Leicestershire Highways parking standards. As previously discussed, a scheme of highways alterations subject to a road safety audit has been submitted and accepted by Leicestershire Highways. A transport assessment has been submitted and accepted by Leicestershire Highways, which concludes that the proposed development will not have an unacceptable impact on the highways network. A representation was also received from Harborough Transport Action Group, who supported the findings of the initial road safety audit. The applicant has made amendments to the scheme to address these issues and has provided a response to the one outstanding issue, which, as mentioned earlier, is outside the scope of the planning application. Following the publication of the officer's report, the lead local flood authority, which is Leicestershire County Council, has provided comments on draft condition 18 and suggested an additional condition, which is condition 26, which relates to the management of surface water during construction. It also came to light that a condition relating to noise from the proposed plant had been omitted. Please see your members' update. Therefore, the planning application is recommended to be permitted subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A and the addendum to the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And open up to questions from members, please. Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the officers for the report and also for the addendum, which seems to make a great deal of sense. I've got 2 questions. The first one is the scope to extend the school should demand require. It looks like it starts off with probably 7 forms of 30. And then the second question, I think we all have experience of drop-off and pick-up times at schools. I note from the report there are 9 pick-up drop-off spaces. Do we consider that to be enough? And are there, or what measures do we consider in the surrounding area to try and prevent the chaos seen elsewhere in the county? Thank you, Chair.
You taking that, Oliver, or Emily? Emily.
Thank you, Chair. In response to your first question about the scope to extend, the design that has been submitted is a modular design. So my understanding is that, you know, it could be extended. However, I'm sure that if the need arose, then a planning application would be submitted and considered, you know, at the time that it was submitted, with all the material considerations taken into account. And in terms of your second point about the drop-off arrangements, Leicestershire Highways have been consulted on the parking proposed within the site and the measures which will be in the public highways off of the site, and have raised no objection to the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Merrick.
Thank you, Chair.
as far as I'm aware, the government have still got a target of 2030 to get rid of cars with proper engines in. So my question is 4 charging points in the car park sufficient for when the school is at maximum in 2030, when everybody should be having electric cars? I just think 4's not enough.
Thank you, Chair. You're right. For the infrastructure, as part of the proposed development, the applicant is proposing to install 4 charging points within the car parking area. They are also future-proofing the development by proposing to install the infrastructure to provide a further 4 parking electric vehicle charging points. So there would be 8 in total. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Mr. Merry. Mrs. Page.
Thank you, Chairman. Very comprehensive report, but I've got a couple of questions for clarification first, please. Question number 1, we know that schools always cause some sort of apprehension within an area. So just confirm the school was in the master plan. So I assume it was. Question number 2, it says that the school should be ready by September 24. However, can you please confirm whether the roads will all be adopted by then? Because I'm not sure whether the roads are adopted yet. So that is question number 2. Question number 3. It is, you're referring to the structure plant equipment which are proposed. Could you point out to me where that is on the area and how that is accessed for maintenance? And 61 refers to the carbon zero policy. And whilst I appreciate there is a pond for surface water runoff, have we ever considered to reuse rainwater as well as, flush it, etc., etc.? Number 77 refers to smaller trees and hedging are proposed, and it might be my fault, but I can't see a landscaping policy. And I think and the lighting, 111 says the lighting strategy has not been submitted. And again, I can't see a condition, but again, that might be my fault. But if you can clarify that, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Page. Emily Oliver, did you catch all those?
I think so. And we'll take them in turn. So yes, the school has always been in the master plan. The development plan document for Harborough District Council, which has since been superseded, but the one that allocated the strategic development area included the school. Outline permission was granted for the school. Will the roads be adopted? Leicestershire Highways confirmed in their consultation response that the Owen Way and Peter Callis Way or Peter Callis Road are not yet subject of the Section 38 agreements. However, the planning condition 12 that relates to the highways alterations that were shown on the screen has been worded to require the scheme to be developed or to be constructed prior to the school is operated, prior to the school opens. I don't know, do you want to provide any more on that?
So in terms of the supporting infrastructure to ensure that the school is safe, that is a requirement for it to be in place ahead of the school development opening. In terms of the adoption of the road, that's not something that needs to be required, is required in advance of the development taking place or it opening. I don't believe that we're in a position to say whether the roads will be adopted in advance of September next year, when the date of the school opening is hopefully going to take place. We do have Rebecca Henson, the highways team manager, here. So if it is okay with Chair, Rebecca would be able to give perhaps more advice on adoption of roads and its relevance to this application.
Chair, may I come back, please? I think it is really, really important that we've got this on record because it also links into the construction management plan, because I feel that if the roads are not adopted and there is an awful lot of traffic in relation to the constructions, the residents might become ultimately responsible for any damage that may be caused to the road. So I think for the record, I think that is something we should consider at this point. Thank you.
Just bear with me a second. Rebecca, would you like to come and perhaps fill in some of the questions, please?
So thank you, Chair. Answer to your question, Mrs. Page, the roads surrounding the site, so Airfield Road and Owen Way, are not currently subject to an adoption agreement. So as members will be aware, it is a developer's responsibility to offer roads for adoption by the local highway authority. At the moment, whilst we understand it is the developer's intention to offer those roads for adoption, there isn't a signed agreement. On that basis, and noting that when we do enter into agreements for adoption, there is a minimum responsibility of a 12-month maintenance period following confirmation that the roads have been built to our required standards, I suggest it is unlikely that they'd be adopted by September 2024.
Mrs. Page.
Thank you, really appreciated. Nice to have you here, Rebecca. So what can one do as part of the condition or whatever to ensure, can it be incorporated in the management construction plan or whatever, that the developer make good if there are any damage or whatever? Because I think we need to iron that out at this point. Thank you. And thank you, Rebecca.
Mrs. Page, members, I'm just going to take a comment and advice from Oliver, who's just confirmed something about this. Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, the adoption of roads is a separate regulatory process to the planning application, and the adoption of roads doesn't have a bearing on whether permission should be granted or not.
But the management construction plan is part of the condition, isn't it? So therefore, if the management construction plan incorporates something that may refer to it, even if it is a note to applicant, then as an authority, we have got that ability to enforce.
Is there something particular within a construction environment management plan that you would wish to see in terms of the roads? Perhaps I'm struggling to understand the question slightly.
Well, I'll take Rebecca's advice, but what I do know from previous application and from my long time, if you make arrangement, even if it is in early years, then we as authority have got to come back later on if there's damage of highways or adoption, if there's anything that refers to that, if you see what I mean.
County Council wouldn't adopt the road unless it was up to the required standards. What we don't want is to adopt a road that's not fit for purpose and then having to do repairs. So I'm sure Rebecca will agree there would be a survey of the road undertaken before we adopted it to make sure it was fit for purpose. And the responsibility for the adoption of the road lies with the developer, not with individual residents.
Rebecca.
Yes, I can confirm that prior to any adoption, we would carry out a full inspection. So a visual inspection as well as detailed of the construction of the actual carriageways and footways.
Are you satisfied, Mrs. Page? Thank you very much. Right, next on my list, Mr. Lovegrove. Sorry, Emily.
Sorry, there's a few more questions to go.
I beg your pardon. After you.
So your next query was around rainwater harvesting. The applicant is proposing measures. The the roof is connected to downpipes and the water will be captured. There's proposed rainwater gardens at the front, and the other side, the south side of the school building, drains down into the surface, the sustainable urban drainage strategy within the site. So I think hopefully that addresses that comment. You asked a question about the landscaping condition or landscaping details. So the landscaping plan that was submitted was shown up on the presentation. The landscape consultation response that we received suggested additional conditions relating to a detailed landscaping strategy, as well as a longer term landscaping strategy. So both of those conditions are in Appendix A. Condition 8 requires the detailed landscaping strategy to be submitted. Condition 9 requires the longer term 30-year plan to be submitted. And both of those conditions will provide the council an opportunity to make sure the biodiversity net gain is achieved. That's that one. And then the final point, I think, is lighting and the lighting condition. If I can direct your attention to condition 11, that requires the applicant to submit the details of CCTV and external lighting. Thank you.
Right, again, you're now satisfied, Mrs. Page. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Thank you, Emily. Mr. Lovegrove.
Thank you, Chairman. Excellent report, well presented. Thank you very much. 1 or 2 points, I don't know whether I'll go into questions or not. One has already been answered a little bit. With 210 pupils, I come from Beaver Division, which has got 32 villages, and one of the perennial things is car parking or drop off and pick up with parents, whether they be petrol, diesel or electric. People will still not walk. And with 210 pupils, ultimately 9 pick-up and drop-off points may be adequate, but whether it's going to serve the needs and whether it will be a problem in the future, if it could be future-proofed to make adequate provision for those people who can't walk to school, to save that congestion in that car park would have been brilliant. The second one is, I think we were here about a year ago, and a bit Groundhog Day. I don't like flat roofs, schools particularly, and where it might come in the design now and might be a cheaper option. Flat roofs will always be a problem. I know we're at the stage now where we're looking to approve or reject the application, but in future planning of schools, could they not be flat roofed? Would be a good one. And then also with the county council going for net zero by 2030 in the county by 2045, is there any solar panels? I know the water is collected for the plants, but I know schools, MV16 in Melton, they actually harvest the water for the toilet system, or ground source heating, all those sort of things, on what the heating system will be for the school. Thank you.
Emily.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Actually, that picks up on one of the points. Yeah. So yes, PV panels are proposed on the roof. There's also an air source heat pump proposed, which is located in the it's kind of adjacent to the northern boundary of the site. It's slightly west of the school building. Can we show it?
Bring the slides back up again.
Yeah, that one's perfect. So the dark grey is the footprint of the proposed school building. If you look slightly north and slightly west, there are 2 little rectangles. That's a plant. So there's a sprinkler system and the air source heat pump. And then if it's still kind of considered plant, there's a bin store as well, which is in the northeastern corner of the car park. And access will be along the front of the school building. There's a footpath all the way to the air source heat pump. And again, into the car park to the bin stores. So hopefully that addresses those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy, Mr. Lovegrove? Of course. Thank you very much. Mr. King is next on my list. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Really excited about this as it's in my division, and thank the officers for keeping me up to speed with the proposals as it's gone forward. But I've got 2 slight queries. So the first off is going back to the future expansion possibility of this site to become a two-form entry in the future. I mean, this is for those who aren't aware, there's going to be 1,500 houses around this school, ultimately when the whole area is built out. So most of the potential kids could actually walk very easily to this site. So I think there's always an issue about that anywhere you go. But just coming back to this parking and access and drop off, is it future proofed for the potential increase, which I know colleagues in the applicant side of this are expecting in the fullness of time to probably require that to go to a two-form entry? The second thing I just want to ask about is in paragraph 90, it talks about cycle scooter parking. Is that cycle scooter parking for the children, or is that for anyone, i.e. adults as well? And if it is, having attended a meeting yesterday about an LC Whip proposal for Market Harborough, and this is in part of this area, is this an ideal opportunity to ensure that if there is cycle scooter parking, it's weatherproof and not exposed to the elements, so that when anyone wishes to use their cycle or scooter to get home, it's not wet, basically. I think it's really important that that kind of minor detail is the applicant does factor that in without getting into that. But aside from that, I'm very happy to support this application. I think it's a good, it is the accumulation of many years of work by the different parties that are involved with this. And I know that many residents are, they've been asking me, when is the school going to be open? So the fact that, hopefully subject to decision, Chair, that the County Council will be able to hopefully confirm in the next few days when the school will be planned to be open, I think will come as a welcome relief to many of the new residents who now live there with their children, who are currently having to transport them some way away to receive their primary school education. That's all I really wanted to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Emily, did you want to come back on Black Roofs and expansion and parking and drop off and
Sure.
future proofing? Thank you.
Black roofs, I think, design is subjective. I know your comments and concerns, because obviously there can be problems with flat roofs. However, in this instance, I think the design is kind of functional and acceptable. So hopefully that kind of parks that. And then in terms of parking and traffic, should the school be extended, members are considering an application for a one-form entry primary school with 210 pupils eventually. Parking and traffic, should the school seek to expand, would be considered at the time of a subsequent planning application, which would have to be accompanied by the appropriate evidence justifying that it's not going to have a negative impact with respect to traffic and parking. So hopefully that parks that issue. And then in terms of cycle and scooter parking, it isn't specified in the application documents who would be parking their bicycles and scooters in the proposed stands. However, I assume that both adults and children would be able to securely park their vehicles in those places. Some of them I think are undercover, some of them are not undercover. I don't think we would want to refuse a planning application on the basis that some of them are not undercovered, but I'm sure the applicant would consider that going forwards and make an application in due course if they needed permission to cover those structures. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Mr. King, satisfied?
Yeah, it just seems it's an opportunity which hopefully the applicant will seize to ensure that they are fully weatherproofed, to ensure that there isn't a problem going forward. Thank you.
I think, Emily, that's a very valid point that maybe you can feed into the developers. If that's okay. Just I think you call it an advisory note. So thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much, Chair. So thank you for picking up the questions. If we're taking on board the conditions, and if we can ask officers if there is an opportunity to maybe have a look at putting a slight slope on the roof, because like Mr. Lovegrove, I'm not a lover of flat roofs. I'm more than happy to propose the officer's recommendation. Pick up on Mr. King's note, if there's going to be electric scooters in it, probably needs to be not only weatherproof, but fireproof, as they seem to have a habit of setting themselves on fire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. And Mr. Merry.
Thank you, Chair. Very brief. My eyesight's going the same way as me hearing. It's going south very quickly. It's nothing to do with the proposal, the presentation. When we get the site maps up, and I noticed you were presenting, you were using your finger pointing. Can we not get the IT department to give you a little strap-on laser thing to put on your finger? And you keep saying north, but we can't see north on the thing. And I mean, it's really very difficult. But if you have a little dot, you could just point straight to where the stuff is. I think that would be a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merry. I happen to not approve of flat roofs either, but I do also recognise that modern day weatherproofing material is significantly in advance as when my parents' house was built. However, right, are there any further? Mr. Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I do support this application. I'd like to second the proposal as well, if that's possible, the conditions that's been done. Just going back to the roof material, being very boring here, I think you mentioned it's a standing seam roof, so it is a metal panel roof, so it's not an old felt material, that sort of thing. So hopefully that should overcome, well, they do overcome the problems of the older types of roofs. So in terms of leak, I think we have a better material on there, better appearance wise as well. Very similar, takes its theme from the Innovation Centre, not too far away from that, although there's a pitch standing seam. I mean, flat roofs are never totally flat, but they always have a bit of a fall on them. But I hope that just eases sort of concerns about flat roofs. We're not putting old felt roof on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimley. Any further questions from members? Right. I have one observation, and I would love if future schools, where possible, have the same principle of one way, feed in, feed out, because that will absolutely assist with congestion or mitigate congestion, as noted at point 82. So I think that's really helpful. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder, we also have a supporter in Mr. King. You are approving the addendum version issued this morning. So proposer, seconder, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, members. Application approved. I like it when you can say that. Secondly, just as a matter of point of interest, and it's something quite rightly held until the decision has been made, it's actually incredibly helpful for the authority that you have approved this, because the time frame is really, really tight. And Oliver, if you wouldn't mind, the preconditions, pre-development conditions are already in place, ready to get this spade in the ground as soon as humanly possible. So thank you, members. That's a good decision. And I've lost my Word document. Ewan, I can't find my Word document. No, it's there. Right, I've got it. Right. So agenda item 8 is any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent. There are none, and therefore my final chairman's comment is that agenda item 9 is that the next meeting of this Development Control Regulatory Board is the 26th of October 2023 at 2 p.m. and I thereby close this meeting. Thank you very much, members, officers and members of the public.